Hello, welcome to the first episode of Kahira's Cathartics, a podcast about all things spirituality, current events, culture, and all things that come to my mind. Today, our first episode is going to be discussing the developing complexity of light and shadow. Big topic. So I knew for this big topic, I had to have somebody come and help me deep dive into this subject. So we have Kari of Seekers Evolving. I'm going to turn it over to her and let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Kari. I'm the energy weaver and I'm the founder of Seekers Evolving, a holistic journey for myself and for students and clients and just seekers that happen to come across the healing space for the purpose of uncovering our authenticity together. I work with the Akashic Records, which is basically the spiritual ultimate Google search. And I work with my spirit team. I do a lot of astral travel, witchy things, and pretty much whatever calls to me at the moment. But I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and we're so excited to have you. So, as we're diving in, um, I love the way Carrie defines shadow and light. So I'm going to have her start us off with those definitions and then we're going to kind of expand from there.
Yeah. So, according to my work with the Akashic Records, over time and this is really nothing like too revolutionary, but the way that I've come to define light is simply energy that has been brought to awareness, and shadow as energy that isn't understood or hasn't been integrated harmoniously yet.
Okay, so I'm definitely down for that definition. So, I mean, I'm going to start off by saying, we're all energy. So if you kind of look at it and start exploring from there, shadow is not necessarily a bad thing, and light is not the end all be all perfect thing. But as we're kind of moving on our individual journeys, understanding what shadow is and what light is just so important so that we're able to migrate through situations from a clear and nuanced lens. So when we say shadow, it's just energy that's not understood or that's not been processed yet. That that doesn't mean that it's a horrible thing, because we hear all the time about, okay, you got to do your shadow work. It's the digging and the deep in the depths of those parts of you. But if you think about it, when you're kind of doing your shadow work, what you're basically doing is uncovering what you don't understand or that you haven't processed yet. And then light is just, bringing illumination to the situations and helping to aid in that process. They work in tandem with each other. Um, you have to definitely understand the balance between both of them. And right now, with everything that's kind of going on in the world, understanding that is so important. I've been just talking, so I'm gonna let Carrie come in and kind of give some tidbits of information.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, you can kind of uh, think about like when you turn a light switch off. Everything in the room, it doesn't like disappear, it doesn't become evil or anything like that. You just can't see it. You're not able to navigate your surroundings around you because you can't see what obstacles are in your way. So, really, just illuminating shadow is just essentially shining a flashlight through the room so that you can figure out what's there and learn how to navigate it. And so, that's kind of a very simplistic kind of way of thinking about exploring what you don't understand. And I always say like the more you know, the less you understand. Like the more you realize how little you know. And so that's been kind of like a lifelong journey that kind of mantra that like propels me because I'm constantly um shining flashlights and looking to see what maybe I didn't know until that moment. Because it's so hard to like even ask questions or explore certain shadowy elements if we don't know that they're even there to begin with to even look for. So my life journey is helping other people shine flashlights so they can figure out what they didn't know they should know. And I feel like it can be really helpful just on the individual journey, as well as like collectively.
Yes. Because we have so many people that are on these journeys that don't necessarily recognize their own biases and the way that they shape things around it. So it's just kind of finding that spectrum, that balance between, shadow and light. Um, so collectively, the world is a fucking mess. Okay. So much
Yeah.
has been going on. There's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of confusion. And right now, it's definitely like that shadow is definitely being illuminated. Like right now, everyone is seeing things for what they are and having to call into account things that they've done, that their choices that they're making. Um, so I'm gonna let Kari kind of give her little spiel a little bit on some of the collective stuff because she tends to have a little bit more interesting perspective and nuance in the way that she explains things.
Yeah. So, like said at the beginning, like I work with the Akashic Records, which, again, it's just kind of like the spiritual ultimate Google search. That really is just a compendium of knowledge and memory and just the energetic state of knowing, I guess you could kind of say. And so I really enjoy working with them because it really feeds my curiosity. And so of course with everything going on, I talk with them sometimes about what's going on collectively, both in how that's impacting my individual journey, but also just asking them about how that's impacting all of us collectively as a community. And so the way they like to discuss current or recent past events is essentially that there has been a surge in shadow and fog being brought up to the surface. So they kind of correlate shadow to malevolence, which is um the extreme expression of disconnection and not understanding or being having a harmonized integration of self. And then they also refer to fog as essentially confusion. So having difficulty, it's not that you can't totally see, but you're not really sure what you're seeing or what's what, and you have trouble discerning. And so essentially what they kind of discuss about that is that that's being brought up to the surface and it's being pulled up through the dirt and through the crevices and really brought up so that we can be aware that they are present. Not that historically we are not totally aware that there is a lot of malevolence and confusion out and about, but it's really pulling in those hidden areas. Like I was saying earlier, where sometimes it's like you don't even know what question to ask or where to look if you don't know that something exists to look at. And so it's really kind of pulling that out so that we know where to look. And so um, it's also helping us to kind of engage with awareness, which, as we kind of, if going back to the definition, light is just energy brought to awareness. And so by us becoming more aware of these things that had been hidden under the surface, in the cupboards, in the closets, in the, under the rug and everything, we can now start looking at it. And once we start looking at it and bringing awareness to it, then we can start understanding it and integrating awareness into it. And so right now we're just in a period of that really being brought to the surface, and so that we can bring light to what's coming up. And so the biggest thing that like we can really do collectively, at least that I have discussed with my records and spirit team, is the importance of searching for deeper and more complex awareness, and basically engaging with curiosity, engaging with your inner 4-year-old and asking lots of questions. But that most importantly coupled with action, integrated action from that awareness, because we can think about things and kind of process it mentally all day long, but really what anchors in that awareness and what triggers that illumination and light to like a full degree is anchoring it through action, especially since we live on this very physical earth planet. And so we need to take that action to really fully drive in that awareness and to essentially, for simplicity's sake, like illuminating that shadow and transmuting it so that we can make some active changes collectively as a community.
Okay, and I'm expand on that a little bit more. Like, I know y'all have been seeing an increase, and I know I've been seeing car accidents, um, just situations where people being held accountable in pop culture, all of the things going on right now with safety in the schools. It's just a lot of shadow and dense energy coming up. Everything seems everything seems to be just in this lost world. Everyone's confused, everyone's hurt. People do not kind of know where to lead, where to go right now. So it's what's happening right now is stuff is just aligning in place basically. It seems like things are just working the way that they should, and it sucks, and it's like, all right, all of this is being brought to the surface, but we have to also realize that is bringing about that momentum, that movement, that action. It's a great time to be introspective, connecting with your team, connecting with, people around you, building that sense of community and camaraderie. Because right now is just a time where you can be tricked easily. It's you want to ask questions. You want to not be in this rigid state operating straight analytically. You want to kind of combine your heart and your head as you're making decisions. Do the things that make you feel happy and that make you feel good. um it's just a lot. It's just a lot to process. And as we're processing the shadow and everything is being brought to the surface, the part that's the light, the illuminating, is being aware of the situation, processing the situation from a place of love, from a place of authenticity, from a place of curiosity, and then finding an action towards making change will help to illuminate the light. It's those small choices that you make that will help to illuminate the light. It's moving from a place of not thinking about just self, but thinking about self as a part of a working structure that thrives when you work harmoniously and cohesively. So, there also is a lot of polarities between like shadow and light. Like, I'm just going to give an example. Like, when you think about those shitty decisions that you made when you were younger, that weren't the best decisions, but they also helped shape you into the person that you're growing into, and bringing you towards your highest self, towards the best self that you can be in this lifetime and in this experience. So for so long, we've just tried to talk about the light is the only thing that matters. You have to walk in light and darkness, and historically things being dark have always been perceived as bad, which is crazy. But it's just kind of like that narrative has kind of been going around, and it's important that we understand that shadow and light work in tandem with each other. And it's important to find the balance with working with shadow and light, making sure that you're staying in a healthy point of that perspective. No one's saying to go to the go to the dark side, but understand how certain things and situations help to ultimately move situations along in your life and in the collective. So, Carrie.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is important to have that complexity and to honor both energies. For me, while I understand the point of like polarity perspective and seeing like shadow, light, good, bad, um, peanut butter jelly kind of thing. I get it. And I understand that it's necessary to kind of have that foundational framework to kind of expand out from. Um, but for me, I work from a very, I guess, as neutral as a lens as I can, and I really am an advocate for complexity. And I think that when you kind of look at light and shadow from a more complex lens, that you really find that they almost don't exist. There's so many energies and things that lie in between that bind them that are really like a lot more important, and can really help you with your self development versus kind of identifying things as one or the other. I feel like it's can kind of be a trap when you rely too much on it, that can put you into a box, because when you start viewing things as one or the other, then you start having to fit yourself into that framework. And so I always believe, I kind of like work from the idea of the sphere of truth, which is essentially like the concept that truth has 360 degrees essentially of perspective. And just like how you can kind of look at a situation and be like, oh, well, this was obviously the villain and this was obviously the hero. A lot of times when you end up sitting down and talking with the hero and the villain, and you actually receive honest and neutral kind of information from both of them, you start to realize that the line gets a little bit more blurred. You find out like the villain maybe was, you know, someone who experienced a lot of trauma, or maybe even was doing the things that you perceived as bad for reasons like protecting a family member or something like that. And obviously, again, this is a simplistic kind of way of thinking about it. There are more extreme experiences of malevolence, of course, like where there isn't really a justification for it. But even still, that kind of ties into like the idea of things being a spherical spectrum, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so that there's always these shades of gray that you can kind of see the world in, that are most of the time a lot more honest than kind of trying to stick things in one or another. And even if you just kind of look at the, we're both from the United States, and so if you look at our political system, it's pretty easy to see how
They full of shit.
damaging it has become, trying to force people to agree with one or the other. And when really there's hella complications with both of them, and really it's forcing people to fit themselves in a box that really isn't always representative of who what they really believe and want for their respective communities. And so I think that really the biggest thing that you can do to understand the kind of polarity aspect between shadow and light is to deconstruct that polarity
Period.
uh perspective, and to really like hone in on your unique perspective and figure out what that authentic perspective is. Because everyone that exists here right now in my belief system has their own unique perspective that is necessary for filling in that spectrum and kind of eradicating um that disconnection between shadow and light. And when everyone is kind of allowed to have their own beliefs and opinions, you start to find out that they're really not so different, but at the same time they're still unique. And then that's what essentially builds that bridge, especially when everyone is open to respecting the sovereignty of other people's choices and decisions, and reinforces that sovereignty in the fact of that we don't have a right to make other people do what we think that they should do, which
Gets
yeah.
into a lot. And it's just like, if you look at our government, I'm a black woman in America. Shit is rough out here. The stuff that they do, the problems that are true problems people don't know about because we're so busy pitting ourselves against each other and trying to find those little nitpicky things when we're not realizing the more we fight each other, the less accountability there is. And when you get to talking about, shadow and light and the spirit, like the spherical approach that Kari was speaking about, is where we're stepping into as a people, as a universe, as a whole. We're stepping into that viewpoint of processing situations and events and subjects. We're moving towards understanding the nuance and the depth that goes into things. We're it's like this. There's just some people who aren't aware of what's what they're doing that's hurting somebody, or they don't have the means. And then there's those people who just don't give a damn. And right now, that shit is going to stop. It's going to be a lot of people that are going to have to take accountability. Um, and then those people who have been mistreated and misunderstood, if they explore this time and navigate through curiosity, there's so much available right now to help people make their dreams come true. People are tired. I'm personally tired of how the world is operating. And if we begin to find our spectrums to develop a sense of camaraderie, community, connection, authenticity, we will be moving to a different place. It's just important that we do that. And understanding that gray area between the shadow and the light will ultimately kind of help us get there. So, as we're like navigating these times, I definitely think that there's going to be a plethora of emotions and things that kind of lead us lead us to where we're going. And some of those things I'm kind of thinking about is definitely utilizing divine rage. Um, divine rage is, to me, basically, it's using that willpower and that fire that burns inside of you, using that rage, not necessarily anger, but using that rage as momentum towards action to figure out things. Um, if you think about it like this, there's going to be a lot of people taking a stance, you know, letting their voices be heard. People are stepping out of the darkness and into the light. And when I say that, there's going to be people that are going to take a more active role in their community. There's going to be people coming together. And I think it's important to utilize, that divine rage to help navigate these difficult situations and to bring some clarity and to bring authenticity and connection to the whole.
Yeah, and my I was just recently talking with my record keeper about the concept of divine rage. Um well, they were talking to me about it in a recent channeling I did on YouTube, but they were really reiterating the importance that when we talk about divine rage, that a divine rage that's illuminated by authentic and loving light is divine rage rooted from tenderness and not vengeance. And so that doesn't necessarily mean the divine rage is gentle or that it's meek or that it's easily, handled. Um, it can still be a freaking hurricane, but it's rooted from the concept of tenderness for yourself, tenderness for your community, and tenderness for the earth we live in. And the idea of like, I'm filled with divine rage because I know that I deserve better, that we deserve better, and that these other people, including myself, do not deserve to have our sovereignty impeded on. And so that divine rage is being acted out from that core energy versus the energy of vengeance or I want, or a hierarchical energy where it's like, well, I want, how dare they try to be better than me, or how dare they so and so. And not that that can't still, complexity, there's ranges to it, but if you're really emphasizing divine rage through tenderness, then it can make such a big difference and it can go a lot further in helping others illuminate their own light.
Yeah, it's just like you've got to move from a place of, I want things to change and not from a place of F that person or forget this or forget that. Um, I think another big theme that we'll be exploring to navigate this time and navigate the light and the shadow is definitely curiosity. And when I say curiosity, I mean just explore explore things outside of the norm. Don't get caught in doing things in routine in this mundane sense. And even in those mundane activities, explore, think about things, open your mind up to stuff. Um, if you're on your drive and you're late for work and traffic's going, well, maybe there was something you needed to see. Explore from that perspective. Explore things that bring about happiness and wonder and joy within your life, that that childlike mentality like Carrie had spoken about earlier, that childlike, that inner 4-year old, you know do things that make you feel good, because right now the energy is kind of dense and it's kind of heavy. You got to take every experience that you go and be curious, ask questions. Think about, what if I do it this way? Be open to taking that different way home from work. Be open to going in that store. Be open to that random conversation with the person that you met in the grocery store, because you never know where those things are going to lead you. And the more you dive deeper into that energy, the more you'll be able to get into the rhythm of everything that's currently going on.
Yeah, because curiosity is really like when we going back to that metaphor I used earlier, but curiosity is really the flashlight that will help kind of lead the way through a lot of this shadow. Between curiosity and community care, like that is really like the big key. Because honestly, collectively, a lot of us, as much as people will, harp on love and light being like one and that's all that is love and all that kind of stuff, to be real honest and frank, love is real distant from a lot of us collectively.
Hell yeah.
And so we can't just automatically ask people in war torn countries and people who are starving, people who just trying to figure out how they're going to fill up their gas tank tomorrow,
Shush.
type of thing. Um it it can feel real difficult to switch from that to unconditional, overflowing love. That can kind of be an extreme, like if we're talking about polarities, that can be an extreme cliff to jump from
Yeah.
one to the next. And so curiosity can kind of act as that bridge to start bringing in that awareness and interest and illuminating pathways through that shadow enough for you to get to that point.
Looking beyond just the self, like exploring what goes on, thinking about your fellow people, like, if not to be a good person, of just being like, maybe if I help them, then this will happen, then that'll happen. Being curious about what you can do. Um And one of the other things I wanted to touch on is definitely breath. Carrie has such an interesting perspective and relationship to breath. I want to let her kind of expand on it and give a little insight before I jump in.
Yeah. So, um along with working with the records and all this other stuff, I do work with energy weaving, which is the way in which I work with energy, through energy healing, energy manipulation, reading energy, etc. And so I work with like what I view as the soul mechanisms, which is the lens in which I view the structure of a soul body. And so along my journey, they like to play with my soul body and rearrange things and restructure things, and in a way that's more harmonious, but they have me watch and engage with and be an active participant in this process to deepen my understanding of the soul mechanisms. And so essentially a while back I had one of those changes in which it drastically, like, revolutionarily changed the way that my physical body energetically processes breath. And so they essentially told me after a while that the reason why I had experienced that was so that I could help show others how I experience it. And then also, because it's something that collectively is shifting and changing amongst everybody um, at varying degrees and frequencies or whatever. But basically, without being able to like show you because it's a podcast, but um, think about it like normally when you're breathing, first of all, most of us really do not pay attention enough to our breath unless we're actively in a meditation or doing breath work or yoga or something like that that's calling attention to the breath. But yeah, for the most part, we really don't pay much mind to our breath. Now, I'm a chronic asthmatic. I pay attention to my breath because I have had experiences where it has left me. So, but normally when you're breathing, it's the idea of like you're breathing in and you're breathing out. Inhaling, exhaling. It's this very almost linear and like almost sharp energy exchange between you and the earth, right? And so the best way I can simplify the change for me was instead of breathing in and out, I began breathing through and around. So it was like my body was the bridge, and underneath me was, for example, um, the center of our galaxy, and then above me was the center of our universe. And as I breathed in, energetically, I was pulling energy and breath through me into my core, almost like my core is a magnet drawing it towards me, from above down through my head and down almost my spine, and then up from beneath me, up through my spine, meeting in the middle with my lungs and my heart. And then as I'm holding the breath, it kind of flutters and flows through my physical body. And then as I exhale, that energy expands out around me, filling essentially the sphere of my energy body. And so I know it kind of sounds, I don't know, simple or not like a big deal, or like, oh, well, that just kind of makes sense anyways, or whatever. It can be similar to like cosmic grounding. But when the shift happened, it doesn't require me consciously thinking about it. That's just how my energy body at this point constantly does that breath, the energy exchange and process of breath, which is really wild. It literally was like my entire energy body inverted, flipped inside out, and came out restructured. It was very bizarre, very intense. But collectively, that's going to happen for everyone, as far as I've been told, at some point or another, whether it be tomorrow or 50 years from now. But everybody at their own pace, but being able to consciously start practicing that idea, and by literally me just pointing out that possibility to you and it being in your brain now, it can make it easier to navigate this shadow and light and this fog and everything going on right now, because it can help you with processing energy. And I've you can even play around with like being intentional when you do intentionally tap into that process of breath, of what type of energy you want to pull through, which can help you with transmuting a lot of the shadow and fog going on right now. So, say you are feeling really confused, you have a lot of fog around you right now. You do that breathing technique and you breathe through, pulling up and down into your center the energy of clarity or awareness. And then you expand that energy out around you, which also a big facet of it is that it's not my energy coming from earth and then going back to earth, though physically that still technically occurs. um energetically that energy stays in my bubble. It stays with me unless I purposefully consciously direct it out to aid with land healing or something like that. And so that can be a big way to like consciously choose to help with this process.
Yeah, and when you think about it too, with everything that's going on, like being intentional with your breath is just so important, just because as times are getting tough and we're going through those things, just taking those seconds and those moments to simply breathe and connect with your breath and have your breath help you to navigate situations and to restructure thinking and to help harmonize your body and your choices as you're moving forward. um, I think it's just so important to utilize divine rage, curiosity, and breath to, begin to move towards the light, those things that can shine, as Carrie says, shine the flashlight on those dark places so that they can be integrated, so that more light and more energy and more understanding can come into play. Because right now, like, it's like we're in this world of a series of choices. Like, things can go so many different ways, but everyone is being called into account. And the choices and the things that you've done in recent times, not to say, oh my God, you did one bad thing, now everything is going to happen, but things are falling into place, and people are learning some lessons, learning some hard lessons, but it doesn't mean that the lessons have to be hard. It just means you need to utilize, your tools and your skill set, and be authentic about what you're doing, and intentional about how you're moving. Don't allow yourself to fall into old habits. Don't allow yourself to fall into the status quo, because there's going to be so many things that are going to come up that are going to shake your core beliefs and your viewpoints and understanding of things. Some just in the world, some in your day-to-day life. Everyone is going to need to be more observant and see how the series of events and choices that you're making are ultimately helping you learn lessons. And if you're intentional about what you're doing, it's also going to make it easier to help you to be able to process these lessons, and understanding that we're a community, we're a group, we're all collectively working together. We're being the person to learn the lesson, we're being the person to help someone learn the lesson. It's so much going on, and at the end of the day, we all have free will. We all, at the end of the day, have the ability to make choices that will impact us. Now, obviously there's bigger structures in society and things and factors that are going to play a part in it, but holding on to where you can make those changes, where you are in control of those things, will ultimately help you to um navigate this time better and begin to shine brighter and to illuminate your personal truth. And as you're growing and illuminating your light and your truth, it's going to help you ultimately understand the importance of illuminating other people's truth. And as we begin to work together collectively, we can begin to make great change and momentum, and restructure some of the way we think about things and process stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, really. Like, my whole thing has always just been like, I was like, I'm not waiting for the aliens or whatever to come save me. I think that we need to work as a community to make changes ourselves. And sure, maybe a little bit of help is always nice. Love to expand our idea of community. But we have to, as much as we are capable of doing, make active changes ourselves. Again, like back how I said earlier, like those active changes and choices anchor in a lot of that energy work happening up in the astrals and all the mental processing that we have been doing. I mean, most of us was I hope we have been in the same pandemic, a lot of quarantine and isolation, and we've been forced to really sit with ourselves and to see ourselves and to bring deeper awareness to ourselves. And so now we need to continue putting that processing into the way that we act and make choices and navigate the world and engage with our lovely earth community.
And as we, begin to make those active choices and decisions, that allows us to be able to more easily flow with the cycles, because uh currently the cycles that we're going through, we are in a time of illumination and all is being seen. Like, things are coming out in so many different ways, and if you find the way to anchor in your truth, anchor in authenticity, anchor in community, you will be able to move with the cycle, because there's one of two choices. You can flow with the cycle and move with it and grow and have this invigorating experience, or you can go kicking and screaming because you're going one way or another. So, you know, practice those practice those things that help you to feel, solid. And this is what I'm going to say: nothing is slowing down. So it's also understanding how to find peace in the chaos, how to navigate that energy and use it to propel and to enlighten and to spark choices and helping to you. It's almost like a rope, using that energy. While it might be hard to get up that rope, you just got to keep pulling, and as you keep pulling, you're getting higher and higher and higher, and then you're able to ring the bell. It might have been hell, but you were able to get through it. Now if you weren't prepared and didn't have what you need, you're going to fall. So you've got to work with those cycles, work with the energy of flow. And flowing doesn't mean that everything is going great. Let me also put that out there. Flowing means that you're able to navigate and handle the situations, and you're able to see growth and understand what was learned. And that's not to say that somebody should just be having a whole shitty life, but if you're constantly going against the grain, and not trusting your intuition, not connected with your team, not connected with nobody, you're just out here all wheels, no brakes, all brakes, no go. You're just all over the place. You've got to explore what you want to do, where you're going, how you want things, because now's a good time to also propel your life to where you want to be. All you have to do is get on that train and ride it, ride the cycle. Um we're just going to continue to keep seeing shifts in the world. And the more we get on those cycles, the easier and smoother these transitions will be. Do you have anything else you want to say here?
I mean, not really. I like the way that you discuss flow and cycles, and really it's just all about being open to where there's other opportunities and being redirected and leading with curiosity to see what you're being led to understand more deeply in your life right now. And, the purpose of lessons is to learn them. So, the quicker and the more open you are to understanding what something's teaching you, the quicker you can move on to the next chapter.
Hey,
So,
couldn't have said it better myself. I want to thank you again for coming and discussing the complexities of light and shadow with me. Kari, the founder of Seekers Evolving, all her social media will be listed in the description bar. She's definitely philosophical and always has some insight. Check her out on Patreon. She has a YouTube. I'm just telling y'all, y'all need to get on the train because she's pretty good about helping navigate it. I want to thank everyone who is currently listening to the first episode of Kahira's Cathartics. Um, it's just up from here. Our next episode, I don't know what we'll be exploring yet, but I hope you come along for the journey. Bye.